The fly that's in the vise is my version of the waterboatman. It's a fly that I use in my area for stillwater trout and also for panfish such as bluegill and crappies and largemouth bass. It's a very good fly because the bug that it represents is in the water 365 days a year, so it's always available to the fish. So to save time, I've already added a 3.5 millimeter steel bead to a size 12 wet fly hook, and then the thread I'm using is a number 70 denier, and so I'm going to wrap that back about halfway down the hook shank. And then the materials that I'm going to be using are a real fine Flashabou, a thicker Flashabou that's probably a 1/16 of an inch wide, a pheasant tail feather piece, and rubber legs. Get those on. A piece of rubber legs, and then peacock curl for the body. So I'm going to start out taking the Flashabou and tying it on the top of the hook shank like this, and then I'm going to make a loop, and this loop is going to represent the air bubble that the water boatman carries around with it, because they do not have gills, and so they have to go to the surface and grab a little bit of air and carry it around on their abdomen. That looks about right. So I'm going to snip this portion off and then tie that down. Just like that, to make that little loop. All right, the next thing, I'm going to tie on a bigger piece of Flashabou. And again, I want this to be so it's right on the top of the hook shank. Like that. Get this over a little bit, I guess. There we go. And then on top of that, I'm going to tie a piece of a pheasant rooster tail feather, and tie it on. And what I've done is I've sprayed this with enamel so it will stick together better when you tie it on and fold it over and that. All right, I'll move the thread forward and take my silly legs, which are going to represent the oars of the water boatman, and tie those on. And they're back about, a quarter of the shank, hook shank. I'm going to make one loop behind that. There we go. That's better. Trim this tag off. So it's kind of looking like this so far. Now I'm going to pull my legs back and I'm going to tie 3 strands of peacock herl in. Like that. Snip this little tag off. And then I'm going to hold these with my thread. If you don't have a rotary vise, you can just make a dubbing loop. So I'm going to spin that on, making a dubbing loop out of the peacock herl and the thread. And this makes a more durable fly. And then I'm going to take this and start wrapping it on, holding my legs out of the way. Like this. Come back behind my legs. And wrap on back, covering up where you tied your pheasant feather in. And then work it back forward, positioning your legs the way you want it. And then tie this off. Snip that little tag off there. Pull your pheasant feather over. Hold it flat on the top of your hook shank. Tie it in. See how that's flat along the back? And then I like to pull this back and make a couple turns on that to secure it better. Snip that off. Take your big piece of Flashabou, bring it over the top of your back like this. Hold it down with your index finger and tie it on. So you can see I have that laying right across the top of that pheasant feather. Cut that tag off. Kind of cover this trash up here. And you don't have to worry, you can add a lot of thread there because they have a black part on the front of their thorax. So I'm going to tie this off. Cut that tag that broke off. Trim these legs up. Then I'm going to add UV resin, the hard type. Run that along the top of that fly there. I like to kind of blend it with the head. Like that. And then hit it with my light. And that's your fly.